Hey guys, I just wanted to come on here and share with you my 4B journey. At this point, I think most people possibly know what 4B is, but in case you don't know, here's like a really quick summary. The 4B movement started in South Korea in 2019. It's a radical feminist movement. Basically, it's a response to a book that was written called, I think it's Kim Ji Young, born 1982. Sorry for the pronunciation. But basically, women read the book and realized that it was just about the mundane life of a South Korean woman who had to experience a patriarchal society that treated her as a nobody, pretty much. Um, and women reading it realize that this is their life. Like now that it's like they gained perspective when they read that book and realized that they were kind of all living the same life and that something about it was really off and really wrong. So instead of like arguing with men and begging them to change, some feminists decided, you know what? You keep your patriarchy and I'm just gonna do what I gotta do, which means I'm gonna stay away from you. So the four B's, I believe B in Korean means no. So the first B would be, I don't know if there's like a particular order, but I'm just gonna start with Bihun, which is no marriage with men. You don't get married to men. B Hyune is no dating men. So no dates. So nobody has to argue about who's paying who or if we're gonna split the bill 50-50. How about we just don't do it at all? That's what the South Korean woman decided. The third B is going to be Bichul-san, which is no children. Yeah, men want to talk about legacy this, legacy that. They want to spread their seed. They don't want to be the last of their line. And women are just like, oh, okay, well, you can try to do that on your own. I want no part in it. So I'm not going to be having any children for you or any children at all, really. And the last one is bisexual. And I think this one is kind of self explanatory. It's one of those like Korean English words, but it means no sex with men, clearly, because why would you give them that? That's pretty much what they really want from you anyway. So it's going to be a hard pass for them. So I'm going to talk about like how I found 4B religion. At this point, I could say that. Um, I think I was 4B before I even knew it was 4B. But I think my journey started off. I think like let me start from the beginning. Like most women, I was like socialized. You got the dolls as a kid, and you're like, oh, I want to have a family. I want to have a kid. Not really understanding what exactly that all entails, what that all means. But that's what I did want to get married when I was like a very, very small child, like very small, probably like 5 and under. And then I think I realized that this is disgusting. I don't want to do this. This is horrible. This is awful. Like I saw the reality of how men act. I think it was probably like in I would say primary school. Um what's that called in America? I think first grade. Elementary school. There you go. Yeah. So the equivalent of elementary school. So when I was in like primary school, I saw how the boys would treat the girls, like the name calling, and that it was just allowed. And everybody's excuse was, oh, boys will be boys. Oh, they're allowed to hit you. They're allowed to, playing dodgeball. They're allowed to throw it at your head. To the girls, they're allowed to do all of that. That's like, oh, it's fine. Oh, they're just being boys. Ha ha ha. It's so funny. And I was just like, so this is the people that they want us to marry. Like this is it. Like that's them. And I couldn't stomach it. The thought of it. I wanted nothing to do with any of that. So that's when I was like, okay, men are immature and I don't actually. So I think that's when marriage kind of like went to the wayside and having kids, like seeing kids screaming in stores and just looking at the person you're supposed to procreate with. Like, that's just such a ew. No. Like, can you imagine like one of those people becoming like responsible for a small child, they'll probably like do something horrible to it. And then like they're so irresponsible, and it's like all the work is going to be forced on you. It's like one of those situations where, somebody gets like a pet or something, and they refuse to take care of it properly because they're immature, and you now have to be forced to step in because you're not a psychopath and you don't believe in cruelty, so you're going to step in. And I think that's exactly what I thought would happen. I would have the child, they're going to not know what they're doing, it's going to be a shit show pretty much, and then I'm going to have to be the one to step in so I don't get arrested on these child neglect charges if they come up. That was kind of like my thought process. So that's when children and marriage kind of started slowly fading out. Children kind of faded out first, and then as a teenager, I became an anti-natalist. So yeah, becoming an anti-natalist or anti-natalist, depending where you're from. In high school, I started following that philosophy. I didn't know the name of it. I only found out the name of it, I think, like maybe in college. But yeah, I was strictly and believed wholeheartedly in antinatalism. Antinatalist is it's self-explanatory. It means you're against natalism or children, birth, giving birth, reproducing. You're anti that. So for me personally, my reasons for being anti-natalist is I thought it was immoral. Personally, I think having children is a selfish act, and I think there's only few circumstances where having a child is appropriate. All of it is selfish, but some is more selfish than the other. Because if life is about trials, tribulations, suffering. For instance, if you live in poverty and you're suffering, if you have a child, I'm just gonna say it's you're lacking in morals. Like something's not right if you believe that as an adult you're having a hard time. So let me just add a child so that I won't be lonely in my misery. Like that's not okay to me. Like there's no value in having a child, in my opinion. My thought and my reasoning behind this is if somebody has a kid, the kid didn't ask to be here, which we're already dealing with a consent issue. How many people born don't actually want to be here anymore? And I think how can I say? I feel like YouTube would flag me if I say the word. We'll just call it the side. Okay. I think the side rate shows that a lot of people have an issue with being here and don't want to be here. Am I really going to have a kid and risk them feeling that, being mad for being born, being upset about it because I dragged them here because I wanted company? Yeah, I just don't think that's right. I don't see, and I don't think there's a justification for it. I've never had somebody give me one reason that was not selfish, that didn't start with, oh, for having a child. Oh, I want to feel like I can do better than my parents did. That's about you wanting to prove to your parents something. So you bring a child so you can practice, so you can be an example for you to show your parents. Oh, look, I did it better than you. So let me just make this child to prove a point. Or I want to give this man a baby. Is a child like a puppy? Is it like a gift? Honestly, I don't even believe people should be giving other people pets. I think that's sick as well. But I digress. Yeah, I don't know any reason somebody could possibly have for that's not selfish for having a child. There is none that I can think of at all. It all leads back to how it can benefit the person making the child or benefit somebody else. Everybody else it's meant to benefit except the child itself. The child would be like trickle down benefits, I guess, like by benefiting everyone else, the child is going to benefit. So let me have the child. That doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't believe in that. The only circumstance where I can see having a child is it's not great, but it's not the worst, would be somebody who is mentally stable, financially stable. And I'm talking about like they have enough money to support a child. And if you live in your country and you know exactly like how much does it cost to raise a child from zero to adulthood or have them set up longer, whatever, that amount of money, if you don't have that saved, you're not in a proper position to have a child. You're not in a great position to have a child. If you're going to have that money, as time passes, as the child grows up, you're going to actually be able to provide that money. You may not have it as a lump sum now. You will get that money over the child's development as they grow up. You'll have money to send them to college. At the very least, if you do not have tuition money for a child to go to college, which is what, something reasonable between like 40 and $60,000 saved, it's not responsible to have a child at that point. So, mentally stable, emotionally stable, financially stable, socially stable, as in like you have support, you have people to help you. Those are the only four situations where you have them all aligned that I would say, okay, having a child at that point, fine. You want to continue, you want to add another hamster to the wheel, sure. You want to add another taxpayer for the government, sure, whatever. You need another body for the army if they need to invade something. You want another person to be drafted. You want to create more soldiers for the government, whatever. I always say a birth certificate, it's a receipt, okay? Like, and the child's footprint that they put on it, that's their signature signing themselves away to the government. So that's my personal belief on it. So that's why I was an anti-natalist. So I never wanted children because I just don't think it's morally correct to do that if you do not have everything in place and you're okay with releasing a child into wolves, pretty much, because that's what the world is. So fast forward to after I graduated from college. Actually, yeah, no, after I graduated from college, because I wanted to kind of get myself set in life first before I even thought about seriously dating anyone. So I was open to dating, maybe kind of like if I really had to, I guess marriage maybe somewhat, I don't know. Yeah, I was open to being in a serious relationship with someone, right? So I had like what, two of the four B's already crossed out the list, right? No children and pretty much no marriage. But I was still open to having, a serious relationship with someone. So I dated quite a bit. For me, dating was like interviewing. So I did go on many, many dates, but to me, it was kind of just like checking out, listening to what the person had to say, doing a lot of vetting. And then I started realizing that, you know what? The gene pool needs chlorine because if this is my choice, what I have to choose from, then there's nothing to choose from. My philosophy in dating is simply this: I never compared men to each other. They weren't competing against each other for me, they were competing with me for me. If they can treat me better than I treat myself, then okay, I could probably start working with that. But if you can't even do for me what I do for myself, then what is the point? And I think because of my stance on not having children, it made a lot of things cleared because a man is not a necessity. It was never a necessity for me. It was more like maybe something nice to have that supposedly could improve your life. Yeah, so a few years ago I was speaking with my dad. He was helping me do something. I forgot. I think maybe I was like had one of my like little projects that I was building something and he was like helping me. And I think I told him, "Oh, I can do it by myself." And he said, "By yourself, you're good, but together, we're better." And that kind of stuck with me like, oh, okay, so you're good alone, but supposedly, life is better when you're together with someone. So that's why I was kind of still like open. But there was no need. I didn't have a timeline. I wasn't trying to have kids. There was no biological clock ticking. There was none of that to cloud my judgment. So my sole purpose when I was dating was to find this elusive together better situation. Okay? So I'm still open to it. Mind you, I am not sleeping with these people I'm dating. Because what's the point? Like, no. Anyway, so finally, I got my career, had money, got a dog. Everything was going according to plan. I finished college. I was dating, had a social life, have a career now. And I'm still always looking for this elusive, together will be better person. And then finally, I thought I found it. This together better, right? And I would say, in terms of like rating relationships, it was like up there. It was like pretty good. And this is going to sound crazy, but I began realizing something. All men are misogynistic. They may not be misogynistic to you or their daughters or their sisters or their mother, but it's how they talk about other women that they aren't attracted to. It's how they have these group chats where they're all enabling, complicit, encouraging each other, whatever. And it's just full of degradation and dehumanization of women. It is all of them. I have never met a man, even if he's not directly participating, he's friends with somebody who is. And I I was so shocked. I must have been so naive. The corruption is everywhere. It is everywhere. I dated quote unquote high value men or whatever, men with money. And yes, it's better like if you want gifts and stuff like that, sure. Clothes, dinner, whatever, like you can do that, money, whatever. Right? You get more out of them because eventually, you leave the relationship and it's like you have nothing. As we say, you're walking away with your two hands swinging, meaning they're empty. At least when you leave with somebody who has something, you're leaving with something in your hand. Because in every relationship, I feel like you're giving something up. So it feels bad if you don't get something in return for it. It just seems so pointless to me after a while. But anyway, so got into a serious relationship, thought it was the one, and then ran into this horrible truth that misogyny was this evil, like, demon hovering everywhere in society. Like, it was so ingrained in the mentality of men. Like, they don't even know that it's there. It's like they don't realize it. They really don't realize it because it's so common. It's actually normal for them. I think if a man was not a misogynist, he'd be ostracized by other men. Like, they would look at him like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? Like, what are you talking about? Why aren't you objectifying this woman? Like, oh, you actually like your girlfriend? Like, what the hell?" Their normal is misogyny. That's their baseline. They cannot help it. There is no saving them. And me realizing that was just like mind blowing. I really had a paradigm shift at that point. My whole world just changed, but it answered like so many questions. But it was horrible. It's terrible to realize that this is they're all like this. And yes, I am going to say all men. And until you could prove that you're not a misogynist, well, you can't prove it because you are. Like I said, even if you yourself, because the person I was with, he never said anything bad to me about me, never insulted me, anything like that. But it was the woman he wasn't attracted to, the comments he would make, the comments his friends would make that they would find funny, the videos they would watch about, like, oh, a woman getting owned or whatever, or something bad happening to her and finding it funny, the videos they shared with each other. Like, he may claim he's not a misogynist, but he's misogynist adjacent. Okay? It is what it is. There is no man that is 100% just looks at women like they're human, like they're a true person that can be respected and equal. None of that. That does not exist. And it's all men. Let me repeat it for the ones who are in the back. All men. all of them. If they're born, then it's one of them. If they have XY, it's one of them. There you go. That's it. It just is what it is. So anybody that says not all men, you could see yourself out, okay? Because it's all. You can't say that nobody you're friends with is not one. That the people you hung out with at some point in your life, growing up, you were one. Okay? So even if you say, "Oh, well, I'm not one now," you were though. So you count. You count because you were, and you did when you were a teenager, when you were uh growing up, when you were in high school, middle school. Yes, you were. Yes. Okay? So all men. It's in all of them. So even when the relationship was like good, I was happy about myself, to be honest. Even the good was not as good as me being by myself. So this whole better together thing was just not was turning out to be propaganda, to be quite honest. It was not better together. It was more complicated together because now you had somebody else that you had to be accountable to. Now there was somebody else that you entrusted. And even if you didn't want to, it still ended up happening. You had to entrust some of your emotions into this other person. And you had to trust them to be gentle with your emotion. You had to trust them not to disappoint you. That's impossible. So, what is the point? I've never disappointed myself. Why would I want to be with somebody who can disappoint me? That's not better, that's worse. I never lied to myself. Why would I be with somebody who wants to lie to me? That's not better, that's worse. I never argued with myself about any nonsense, like non issue or anything like that. I never had any crazy arguments with myself. But you have crazy arguments with this person. So that's not better. That's actually worse. And after even finding quote unquote the one, it didn't make me happy. And I mean, I always knew that relationships don't make you happy, you make yourself happy. And I made myself so happy when I was alone. And then being in a relationship, having your happiness depend on the actions of someone else, it wasn't worth it. And I wanted out. So that's what I did. I left that relationship. I like to weigh my happiness in percentages. Like I've always done this since I think like high school. I would say being single, I'm 95% happy, 5% unhappy. In a relationship, even when it's good, it's like 80% happy, 20% unhappy, like a really good relationship. Even 80/20, that's a downgrade. It's a downgrade. So what is the point? What is the benefit to me? And I just always I used to ask, this person that I was with, I used to say, um, are you happy? Are you like happier now? And he would always be like, yeah, I'm like so happy. I'm so happy. And I just could not wrap my mind around it. Like, how could this be that you're so happy when I feel worse? And then I realized this was so one sided. Even when it's good, it's one sided. I feel like in a weird way, the percentages that I was losing in my happiness, he was like absorbing it. So me going from like 95 to 80, like he gained 15% more happiness. It's like relationships is like a zero sum game. Like evidently there's only a certain amount of happiness in the pool, and in order for one person to become happy, somebody else has to become less happy. How is that worth it? How is that worth it? What is the benefit? What am I getting out of this? I'm getting nothing. I'm losing. It just didn't make any sense to me. I realized like fairly early on that I needed to get out of this situation. I had like this vision of our future together where we would end up getting married, and then we ended up getting a divorce. We ended up hating each other. It was just inevitable at that point. Like this is it. Because my siblings, they're married, and I would ask them like, so you're married, what's your happiness to unhappiness ratio? and they would be like, "Oh, it's like 70-30." And that's like good. When it's bad, it's like not even 50-50. It's like 40-60s when it's really bad. Why would anybody settle for that? I reached a turning point when I asked myself, what can a man possibly do for me? What can a man offer me? I don't want children. I have my own money. Nothing. That's the answer. And before you say protection, protection from who? Protection from yourself? Because that's who I need protection from, you. After a while, I honestly just felt like somebody walking around like a flea market and like looking at everything and like realizing, yo, there's like nothing here that I actually want to buy. That's what it feels like. There's literally nothing they have that I want. Like what is it? Like there's nothing they have that I want. And realizing that, I think that's when I fully transitioned into 4B. I don't want their money. I don't want to sleep with them. I mean, honestly, if anybody knows about the orgasm gap, like the less said, the better. Like it doesn't even need to be explained or extrapolated on. It just is the truth. Like there's no benefit for me. They're getting more out of it than I am. And I just don't want to do that. So what's the point? What do they possibly have? Like, I can't think of anything that they can offer me. They have nothing to offer me. They don't have anything that I want. I've seen a lot of the men's response to this 4B, and it's actually really funny to me because a lot of men are like, oh my God, like, how can there be a world if there's no men in it? Are these men like, okay? Like, do they think like if all humans die out, like the planet is gonna like implode or something? The arrogance. No, it'll be fine. The animals will continue doing what they're doing. They'll probably actually be doing better because they won't have us to screw everything up and pollute all the waters and destroy the planet. So I'm pretty sure every other species on this planet will be happier if we're gone. So honestly, that sounds like a pro to me and not a con at all. I saw this guy saying, oh, do women think that men are just gonna let them do 4B? For the men that are confused, like that guy, um, does he not know that women can get concealed carry permits? Like you do know that, right? Like we're allowed to. Okay, we're allowed to have CC permits as well, and many of us do. I'm not saying I do or don't, but I'm just saying, you never know. Uh, there's no downside to the 4B movement. Like what is the downside of like humans going extinct? Like I don't see any downsides. Like what is the downside? There's nothing that what we won't make any more money. What's the point of needing money if we're all not here? Oh, we won't have any inventions. What's the point of having inventions if nobody's here? What, so the animals could use it? Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like there is literally no benefit. So I love the 4B movement. I'm going to continue being 4B, and there isn't going to be any impact on my life. And for the people who say it will affect you because if people aren't having kids, then who's going to pay our social security, right? Because the system in America is pretty much just a Ponzi scheme. That's in essence what the social security system is. So the money you're paying now isn't actually going, it's paying for somebody else. It's not actually paying into your own social security. That's for the future generation to worry about. So you won't have any social security. That doesn't affect me because I'm not going to depend on my social security check to survive after retirement. And I think if anybody is literally planning on their social security to feed them after retirement, you need to rethink your financial strategy. Like, because that's bonkers to me. That's crazy. Yeah, there's no downside. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's my journey to 4B. That's the entire story, how it happened. I want to hear your journey to 4B. If you want to make a video or just put in the comments, I'm really interested in how you became a follower, how you joined the faith. Okay, have a good day, guys, and thank you. Bye.